journos, back as ever at the Newcastle United training ground, where myself and Jordan have just been speaking to Eddie Howe ahead of tomorrow's Premier League match against Wolves at St James's Park. We're running a little bit late, so I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. Inevitably, we'll probably get kicked out. But Jordan, as always, we'll start with on the injury front. No fresh injuries, as we understand it, hopefully. But the likes of Sven Botman, who was rested, Harvey Barnes was asked about, Joe Willock, Elliot Anderson, Matt Targett even. What was your takeaway from what Eddie Howe had to say on the injury front?
Well, Sven Botman will be back involved tomorrow, won't he? I think it's just a question if he starts or not. I suspect he probably will. Although for 75 minutes, Jamal Lascelles did all right before that mistake. But Eddie Howe likes his two ball-playing centre-halves, if you like. So Sven Botman had a difficult weekend at the Emirates, so hopefully a midweek off you can see that he'll come back refreshed. But yeah, Eddie Howe said that. I think he said he could. I think he was asked directly if he, would we see it tomorrow? He said we could. So I think that pretty much just confirmed that he'll be in the squad. It's just a case if he starts. The likes of obviously Isaacs and Willock, who started in midweek. Still not 100% according to Eddie Howe, as you'd expect. I think he touched upon it, but with Isaac it's probably more of a mental thing, given all the chronic issues he's had this season. Willock is just about building his Achilles back up, if you like, because of breaking down twice that injury this season. So do you put them in the starting 11 again, give them an hour, possibly a little bit more? Probably do, don't you? I think that midfield three that played at Blackburn on Tuesday, I think is probably the strongest midfield three that they've currently got available. Although there's possibly a debate over Sean Longstaff and Lewis Miley, but Eddie Howe has said constantly that he ideally wouldn't have played Lewis Miley for the amount of games he has this season, just because of his age and sort of exposure to Premier League football. So he naturally sort of dropped out of midweek, and I suspect that'll probably remain the same on Saturday. So in terms of the team, do you name the same start 11? Maybe bring Sven Botman back in, but the rest is the same. Do you bring possibly Almiron back in as well after his assist?
Probably would.
Yeah.
Although he came off the bench and scored the winner against Wolves last year, so maybe Eddie Howe got the same plan up his sleeve. But we'll wait and see. I thought Miguel Almiron came on and looked great, really, in the context of a bad performance, and I thought Jacob Murphy looked well off it, actually. So yeah, I think Miguel Almiron probably played his way into the starting 11 as such. Jacob Murphy probably played his way out of it, and I think Harvey Barnes did nowhere near enough to play his way into it as well, after giving a good run out at Ewood Park. So yeah, I'd go same team, with the exception of Miguel Almiron for Jacob Murphy, and probably Sven Botman for Jamal Lascelles. So yeah.
He touched upon it there, Harvey Barnes. He was, should we touch on Matt Targett first before going to Harvey Barnes, because he is back in training, but Eddie Howe said he needed a little bit longer to ultimately get back with the squad, so he won't be involved tomorrow. Is Matt Targett a player that's going to come in and immediately strengthen the start 11? Probably not, but given Newcastle's left back struggles this season, he may well be an option between now and the end of the season. But I suspect Eddie will stick with Dan Burn, as I think he showed his cards in midweek, really, when he took he took Dan Burn out against Arsenal, and then immediately put him back in against Blackburn. And I think you probably look at that Arsenal game and go, well, and I touched on it last week. Eddie Howe said, we missed Dan Burn's height in the box, obviously conceding the two corners, and I think for me that just showed where Eddie Howe's minds are. I'll be very surprised if Team Liverpool starts out of Dan Burn tomorrow, which again, going up against the counter-attacking team, Dan Burn could be in for another tough afternoon. Sven Botman as well. Sven Botman comes at that left-hand side as well. It's the same left-hand side that I struggle up against pacey teams. I think Eddie Howe was fully aware of Wolves being a counter-attacking team. You mentioned it there. So given the scares that they've had over the last few weeks against your Forest, your Bournemouths, your Lutons, hopefully they're a little bit more wise to it tomorrow, and if it is to be Dan Burn and Sven Botman that start, and they have to be, as I say, a little bit wiser down that left-hand side, otherwise the same patterns that we've seen over the last few weeks will persist.
Yeah, don't think confidence is exactly high heading into this one, certainly from us and probably the team as well. And Eddie Howe admitted that confidence wasn't at the highest levels, and Newcastle have at times looked unrecognisable from the team that we saw the majority of last season, and even as recently as that Aston Villa game last month. So yeah, Newcastle need to get things back on track to save the season, really. Yeah, Newcastle will be looking to get that confidence back, because it's not exactly high after the recent results, recent performances. Eddie Howe even admitted the side look unrecognisable from what we saw pretty much all of last season, and even as recently as that Aston Villa game, which was probably so hailed and so celebrated because it gave a reminder that the team can still produce those performances, but we just haven't really seen it since the sort of clambered to a 3-2 win at Forest, and other than that, the goals have been leaking and the performances have been very unconvincing. So against Wolves, a team who are dangerous above Newcastle in the table, it's going to be a tricky test, and we're going to this game not exactly confident that Newcastle will end or pick up their first win at St James's Park in 2024, which is again another concern Eddie Howe will be looking to address, because the longer that goes on, there's no real room for error really if Newcastle want to qualify for European football in any capacity this season. So yeah,
I think he admitted that as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think he was asked about dropping points at home, and he said, well, actually we can't afford to drop many points away either. So it just shows that, you know, they're fully aware that if Newcastle are to go and challenge in that top 7, top 6, then there needs to be a big turnaround from what we've seen in recent weeks. Anyway, sorry.
And the next 2 games against teams who are direct rivals for them in terms of those positions, so Chelsea and Wolves. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Newcastle United, but hey, you never know. You always back them at St James's Park to a degree, do we?
We used to. No, we used to. No, but say that the home record has been, given that it's been so strong on Eddie Howe, not just the team as a whole has looked unrecognisable, but the home form has as well, because what is it now? Is it 4 home games out of win?
Yeah, 2 defeats, 2 draws since the 3-0 win.
It's never happened. Never happened under Eddie Howe. So going back to last season, the win against Wolves last season almost reignited Newcastle's season in terms of that Champions League charge. It would be nice if they could do that again, because as I mentioned there, Chelsea as well, 2 massive games. We talk about that little mini league table between 6th and 11th. Newcastle are currently second bottom of that. They play Chelsea, who are the bottom of it, and then Wolves, who are above them. So, you know, if they've got any aspirations of finishing in the European places, can they afford to lose any of those games? I don't think they're going to allow any more ground in terms of Wolves going 4 points with them, for example, or Chelsea leapfrogging them, because if Newcastle get 2 bad results in these next games, they're going to find themselves 11th on the table, which, you know, for all the drop off of last season and the injuries and everything that you want to put into it, dropping from 4th to 11th is not good at all. So it's a big period coming up for them. We could have included the FA Cup in that, but Manchester City away.
Let's just change the entire context of the season, where that FA Cup quarter final, 90 minutes from Wembley, becomes a whole lot different when you're away to Manchester City. Pretty much the toughest draw you could have hoped for. If they got a home draw against Man City, you sort of half fancy them. They beat Man City in the Carabao Cup. They gave them a really good game at St James's Park. Well, I was going to say last month, but it was back in January now. So Eddie Howe did recognise that actually they played Man City 3 times this season, and they've been hard-fought games, close games, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Different test at the Etihad, and it just takes the wind out of Newcastle's sails in terms of that FA Cup run, where they just keep getting drawn away from home, which is unfortunate. But yeah, sort of refocuses minds on the Premier League. Not that there wouldn't have been anyway, but certainly from our perspective, where that carrot of a Wembley Cup semi-final or Cup final, even winning the FA Cup, now is sort of been eaten, if you like.
Plunged into major doubt, I would say.
Yes.
Going to Manchester City, I found Eddie Howe's reaction when he was asked about the Manchester City draw, and he said, I was driving at the time and I swerved off the road. So it's, you know, he said that response initially, but I think he has to say that to believe that and go there when he can't not say that. But I suspect there's a lot of people that don't believe they can do that. But would it be the most Newcastle United thing ever in a season where they've been doubted over the last few months and they went there and got a result? I mean, it probably wouldn't be, but
I can't really fathom it.
No, I can't either. Manchester City are the holders. Going to the Etihad. Newcastle won there once, I think, for about 20 odd year. The Carabao Cup. So I suppose they have got cup success there.
Musa Sissoko and Rolando Alvarez.
I'm trying to think of two players we could compare to now. Joe White maybe might come in for that game and do it.
He's cup time.
Oh, of course he is. Of course he is. Oh well, that's my dreams over. Anyway, we're rambling here. Where should we go next?
I think a big talking point, certainly from a national newspaper perspective, was Eddie Howe was asked directly about Newcastle's links with Julian Nagelsmann. Obviously, a lot of big managers circling after big jobs this summer. Newcastle is probably up there, although Eddie Howe's position at Newcastle is still fairly concrete. You'd have to think, even though results have certainly dipped over the past few months. And Eddie Howe was asked basically about his own future and what he thought about other managers being linked, and he was fairly firm in his answer, fairly assured, where it's like, well, my future at the club's up to me. I'm in control of it. So he was fairly comfortable with that position, I felt.
Yeah, backed himself to ultimately turn things around, if you like. I mean the confidence within the club, Eddie Howe, is strong. There's no desire within the football club to go and seek a replacement for Eddie Howe this summer. So it was a link from Germany. There's been a few from Germany over the last 12 months or so. I think the only one that's really came to fruition is probably Kieran Trippier. The rest,
that was the only one with legs, really.
We're seeing the story. I suspect really it's a non-story in many ways. Eddie Howe is the manager of this football club, and as he said himself, will be the manager of this football club for as long as he wants to be, in terms of getting the right results and taking Newcastle in the right direction. So squash that one straight away, shall we? Well, we told you we'd get kicked out. We got the stairs from...
We did a runner, didn't we?
We did, yeah. With just that door, you can see there, straight out that door. So we'll resume the video. I think we spoke about what we were speaking about, Dom. I forgot.
Eddie Howe?
Yes, Eddie Howe's future, we've squashed that. So what do you want to move on to? Contracts, transfers, you said?
Yeah, Eddie Howe was asked sort of loosely on contract situations. A few players, big players, the likes of Joe Linton, Callum Wilson, 18 months left on the contract. Players like Paul Dummett, Loris Karius, out of contract in the summer. Eddie Howe was just asked directly about those players' futures, whether any decisions had been made. Eddie Howe fairly bluntly just said no. Those conversations haven't really taken place. No decisions have been made as of yet, which, I mean, you expect him to say, whether that's the case or not really. And Eddie Howe was again asked about transfers and things like that, how things have changed since Dan Ashworth left the building, whether any meetings had taken place, and he said, well, it doesn't really matter. Like, Dan Ashworth's exit hasn't changed anything really, and those initial conversations will be taking place. But sort of two non-updates from Eddie Howe, even though big questions, but not a lot said really.
I was going to talk about Harvey Barnes, but again, it was a very brief answer with him, just saying that like several of his players need time to get back up to speed, because in midweek I think Harvey Barnes came off the bench and struggled to make an impact, don't he? And there's a lot of players now that Newcastle have got back, which is a real positive. But Eddie Howe's, how back are they? Exactly, that's the case. Like we touched on at the start, your Willocks, your Isaacs, even your Andersons, who Howe was asked about in the press conference, and again said that the same theme, that another player that needs time to get back up to speed. So for all Newcastle have got a lot of bodies back now, maybe they need a couple more weeks before we start to see the full effects of Newcastle having near enough a fully fit squad again. Obviously you've got big players missing still, Nick Pope, Callum Wilson, a few others as well. But at this moment they've got players, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but 75% fit maybe. There's a lot of players there who aren't 100%. So hopefully in the next few weeks we'll be able to see Newcastle's squad fully fit again, fully up to match sharpness, and then maybe there might be a little run between now and the end of the season, because it feels like there needs to be. There's been a lot of disappointment over the last few weeks, but I'll use Liam's term, the cards are in Newcastle's hands, and you know, they can end the season positively. They just need to go and start getting a few results.
Yeah, Eddie Howe will need to get a tune out of his side.
Oh,
I think the big talking point from the press conference, honestly, me and Jordan just couldn't believe what we were hearing. Towards the end of the press conference, it became taken over by Eddie Howe's piano skills. So yeah, trying to get a tune out of his squad and trying to get a tune out of playing the piano as well.
It's a great national line, that. I can see.
Bit of colour, isn't it?
Read all the national papers. There'll be some creative intros on Eddie Howe's piano playing.
There's about 6 questions on it. 6 questions on Eddie Howe singing, playing the piano, his musical skills, and I think Eddie enjoyed it, just to not be talking about the misery of Newcastle United at the moment. But yeah, it was a bit of respite for him. But yeah, I wouldn't say derailed it, but it took the press conference in a direction that we never expected it to go in.
It was quite funny actually. So all the nationals were asking questions about Eddie Howe's piano playing, and then the first question after that was, Eddie, what about your future? So it was like, went from like, oh, quite funny, and then it was like stern serious, Eddie, what about your future?
And then went back to piano or musical skills. So
it was a chaotic end of the press conference, like a chaotic end of this video, I think, here.
Eddie Howe, grade 1 piano, there or thereabouts. His kids are slightly better than that.
Yeah.
So.
But grade 1, whatever that means, does that mean he's not very good?
I mean, he can play it, basic sort of level.
What was his song, Take On Me?
He's been trying to learn Take On Me, which obviously is probably his favourite song to anyone in the know. But he said it's a very difficult song to learn. So yeah, whether that should be the focus of a Newcastle press conference when Newcastle are in the current situation they're in, we'll let you be the judge of that. But watch it yourself. It definitely took the press conference in an interesting direction.
It was funny. It was amusing.
Yeah, Eddie Howe laughed.
Yeah, and that's all that matters.
Yeah,
obviously. Right.
Just Eddie's happy playing his piano badly.
Right. Anyway, I think that's everything, Dan. I think we've touched upon everything.
Yeah.
We said we'd only do a 10-minute video. I think there's ended up being about 15 to 20
with
minutes
about
again.
3 cuts in it.
Chaos Geordie journals. Right, so we'll be back tomorrow at St James's Park for that game against Wolves. We'll be joined by Liam, as always. Hopefully, will he be in the middle? He might be on the side.
He takes people's comments to heart sometimes and doesn't want to be in the limelight all the time, right in the middle. Hence why I was in the middle the other night. But I'm sure he'll be back with a bang, unless Newcastle get beat, of course, and then he might not turn up at all.
Right, like, comment, share and subscribe for your latest Geordie Journals content. Ring the bell as well, and as I say, we'll see you at St James's Park on Saturday.